Welcome back to the 411 Podcasting Network. I am your host, the one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest experience, Larry Csonka. This is the 411 On Wrestling Podcast episode 12. We are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and of course 411mania.com. Today I am joined by my good friend and longtime podcasting partner, Jeremy Lambert Jr. III. Jeremy, how are you?
Oh, I am doing good. I'm all shook up, Larry. All shook
All shook up, huh? Have you finally recovered from Mania weekend?
Yes, finally, this weekend was a very nice break outside of the UFC card, but the UFC card was awesome, especially the top two fights. So I can't complain about that. But I finally did get some rest this weekend, and then the Superstar Shakeup happened, and we will jump into that. I don't know how I'm feeling about it. I guess my feelings will be known as we talk.
Yeah, we're to definitely that's going to be the main part of the show today. We're going to talk about and break down what we can just on the surface of the Superstar Shakeup. But before we get into the moves, I would kind of like to talk about the format and execution of the Shakeup show. And basically, these shows, like when they used to do the draft shows and stuff, they used to be a big ratings getter, a lot of interest, a lot of excitement overall. And that, for me at least, wasn't the case this year. And I think part of that is the formatting and overall execution of it. And, basically, I know you can't do everything like a traditional sports say, but can we not at least have like a fake war room? Stephanie with some random minions, with pictures of people on the roster on the wall. Just something to maybe give us like a little background, a little information on why people are being picked and why other people aren't being picked. Because obviously, if you're going to do a draft like this and you get to pick anyone, you're going to pick all the top people at first. But if you actually had something built in, I think, an explanation, you get to protect 2, 3, 5 people on your roster, something like that, I think that would help. Instead, we don't even get the old thing with the draft, because sometimes they would do the thing to where there would be a match between Raw and SmackDown, and then the winner of the match, that brand got the pick. And again, we don't get any of that. And then they would switch to, they had the big board with all the pictures on it, and then it would be like a press your luck thing almost. No whammies, no whammies. And then it would come up on a guy, and Johnny Boots and Tights is going to SmackDown. And instead now it's just, we just trot out random people, and half the time, like Michael Cole was just fucking baffled on Monday. Because, like, Ricochet comes out, and he's like, my God, Ricochet's here. Have him and Aleister Black joined Raw? And he was totally surprised. I guess nobody told him they were official for the brand. But why was he surprised when him and Black have been on Raw and SmackDown for like 2 or 3 months now? So it's just, it feels like the whole thing, it's just lacking in the overall concept and execution. I don't know if it's just me. Jeremy, what do you think?
It's not a draft anymore. They've been very specific not to use that term. It's a shakeup now. I agree with you. Like I one thing I don't like is the whole brand split in general. I like the brand split. Let me get that out of the way. I like the brand split. I don't like the execution of the brand split in that, Stephanie and Shane are the commissioners or the general managers, whatever their title is or was. I think it was commissioners. And then they had their general managers. And then like the actual draft was cool. And it's like, oh, we're going to, go to war and all this stuff. And really, the only time of year that Raw and SmackDown go head to head is Survivor Series. And then they do that and it's completely forgotten about. Like Stephanie and Shane were just fine on Monday, which I didn't hate as much as other people, even though last time we saw them, Shane was threatening to fire people if they didn't beat Raw in the Best in the World tournament for Crown Jewel. But they were all happy-go-lucky when they did the whole firing the GMs thing, and now they're both heels, so whatever. I didn't mind that they didn't get along, but I don't like the execution of it in that it should be two shows competing against each other. Like, they don't go head to head outside of Survivor Series, but it still should be two shows competing against each other. They should do like trades and stuff. They should have more free agents and things like that. Like, they should kind of give it that sports feel, and they really just don't do any of that. It's more just two separate entities. Hey, if this person wants to show up on this show one night, cool. If it wants to show up on this show the next night, whatever. We're not too bothered by it. Like the whole NXT call-up thing of, all these guys are going to be evaluated, and then they're going to figure out which brand they fit best on. And it's like, that happened for 4 or 5 months. And like, how long do you need to take to evaluate these guys who are barely on television? And then they just get put on a brand anyway. There's no real, having no general manager and having commissioner figures who really aren't around. Like, there's no reason for these people to be on these brand outside of, we want to put this person on this brand. So I think they've dropped the ball just altogether as a whole brand split concept. And as far as the draft / shakeup goes, again, I think if they use the term draft, like something like that would be cool. Now that it's just a shakeup, I'm fine with just these people are randomly appearing on this show. I did like the whole graphics thing where it would, randomize and then pop up on the screen like, oh shit, this person is here. Now it's just whatever music hits is who's coming out. It's whatever. They shake up the rosters for the sake of shaking up the rosters. It'd be nice if we had some sort of explanation on why this guy is, what the theory or the concept is behind this shakeup. Like, why is this guy chosen? Is a name pulled out of a hat? Is it a lottery ball system? Like, how is this guy chosen to be on this brand? Vince McMahon had insight. He said the biggest acquisition in SmackDown history. He knew that somebody big was coming. So how are these guys picked to be on this brand outside of simply, we just need to move guys around, which is really the whole concept anyway.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because, I mean, I don't need giant mathematical formulas and shit to explain it. I want something to make me care about it. I want a little bit of background, a little bit of something, a little insight onto why wrestler A is going to brand A. Just, give me something. And, I always talk about this because people always think it's complaining. It's not complaining. I love wrestling. I love when I can be invested in wrestling, whether it be through a great match or a great story. And like you said, now it's just the shakeup is moving people to move people. There's no real story behind it. And we're shuffling the deck. And that's it. It's kind of like 52 card pickup. We're throwing all the cards on the floor, and then you get half and you get half, kind of, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works now.
So we started off with Monday Night Raw, and the first big move to Monday Night Raw was The Miz. Your thoughts?
It's fine. I heard Alvarez speculate that they did this to have an extra day to promote Miz and Mrs. I don't know how much truth there is to that. Like, these ratings for these reality shows are always going to fall off. If this was their reasoning of, we need to get Miz on Raw to have these extra 24 hours to promote Miz and Mrs., it's a dumb reason, to be honest. But Miz on Raw is, I don't know what that means for his feud with Shane McMahon. It didn't look like that was over, and after WrestleMania, and it didn't look like it was over after Raw, but now he's on Raw and Shane is the SmackDown commissioner, so maybe it is over. I don't know. Miz as a babyface, I'm still need to see a little bit more from. Not in that I think it's a bad choice, and that we just need to see kind of how it plays out, where he goes, who he feuds with next. Like Shane McMahon is a fairly simple feud, all things considered, and now he's going to be on Raw. Let's see who he ends up going against next and what he can actually do as a babyface.
Yeah, I think in terms of why he was moved, I don't think it's to give an extra day to promote. I think it's just more of a preemptive move to make sure he's on the USA Network show, because they've signed, they have their seasons locked in right now, and if you move him now, he's entrenched on USA, and then you don't have to worry about moving him later when SmackDown moves to Fox. So I think it's basically more about, I mean, I guess in theory you could say it's about trying to help the rating, but I think it's just more about the synergy WWE has built between themselves and NBC Universal over the past several years. So,
yeah, that makes a lot more sense than just we want an extra day to promote this guy.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're the USA Network, I mean, he's your guy right now, because you gave him a show, and you don't want him going to another network, and and I'm sure Fox isn't gonna be like, hey, watch Miz and Mrs. on the other channel. Yeah, it just doesn't really work like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. And like you said, it's I guess Miz moving is fine, but it lacks sense to me right now for the fact that it seems like as of now, unless they do something or build to something a little later, that we're going to get no closure in the Shane feud. And then Miz looks like a total moron because he essentially beat himself at WrestleMania, and then he's going to get no comeuppance, and then Shane busted him open on Raw with his shitty punches.
How dare you say Shane has shitty punches after he brutalized that man?
Oh, I'm sorry. The best pure striker in WWE history, right?
That's right. The fastest hands in WWE history.
And then we kind of talked about this already, but Ricochet and Aleister Black are locked in the Raw now. And, the one thing, the Raw tag division looks really good after the shakeup. I will say that.
The Raw tag division looks strong, and they needed it because their women's division now sucks. Ricochet and Aleister Black, it's cool that they're on Raw. I think they'll be better on Raw than on SmackDown just because they're more likely to get used on Raw. SmackDown is it's a shorter show. Obviously, it's an hour shorter. They really loaded it up with the Superstar Shakeup, especially the women's division. And it seems like they're really going hard with this women's division on SmackDown, which I'm all for. And so, like, I think this should have been the concept in the very beginning, is you have one brand who, they focus more on the women's division, one brand you focus more on the tag team division, just because, one, I don't think they have enough good established tag teams to kind of split that over two brands, and two, like, they don't do enough with the tag team divisions, or anyway. The women's division is in better shape, but I fear for how it's going to look on Raw now after these moves. But as far as the Raw tag team division goes, it looks good on paper. I don't have any faith that they're going to do anything with it until I actually see them do something with it.
And that's a fair point, because it's hard to give like WWE benefit of the doubt sometimes, because you look at a lot of stuff that should be really simple to book, and it just isn't for them for some reason. They have to overcomplicate it, or they just kind of miss the ball on it, and it's like it's right there in front of you. Just do it. But sticking with the tag team division, NXT's tag team champions, the War Raiders, were called up, and they are no longer the War Raiders. They are the Viking Experience. Now, I get that everybody's general reaction was to shit on this name. And I understand it, because it sounds like a fucking special attraction next to Pirates of the Caribbean. But that's not why it sucks. I'll tell you why the name change sucks. You sign War Machine as a tag team. You bring him in. And then you realize, okay, there's a piece of shit MMA fighter that almost killed a woman named War Machine. We want no association with that. And then they also want to avoid any trademark shit with Marvel over the War Machine name. So I understand you need to change the name to War Raiders. So you change them to War Raiders. You essentially keep the same look. You let them keep their names. And then you spend the last 12, 14, 15 months or whatever branding them as the War Raiders. That is part of what developmental should be for. Your branding acts so that you can give them a backstory so that when you bring them up, it's there already. But what I imagine happening is, because Vince doesn't really watch a lot of NXT apparently, and doesn't follow it super closely, I imagine he saw TakeOver New York, and he looked at Triple H and said, "God damn, Paul, look at those big bastards. Put them on Raw. Who are they?" And he went, Triple H goes, "They're the War Raiders." War Raiders? The hell's a War Raider? What are their names? Hanson and Rowe? Hanson? Rowe? Looks like a couple of Vikings to me. Those aren't fucking Viking names. And then him and Kevin Dunn put their heads together and decided the Viking Experience. And that we had to rename them Ivar and Eric. And it just, the reason I hate the name is because you totally just shit on all the branding we did in NXT. You took the time to rename them, you took the time to build them up, make them champions, and then you're just going to give them this name that nobody likes. And then you have people fucking Rick Flair's trying to defend him. Well, people didn't really like Mankind at the beginning. People would have shit on Mankind today if Twitter was around back then. It's well, no, because people realized it was you, and they were willing to give you a chance. These are guys that a lot of main roster fans don't really know. And then you give them the fucking Universal Studios name, fucking they're hanging out with Johnny Depp and Pirates of the Caribbean. It's what the fuck? So, anyway, they're an awesome tag team. They're really great if they book Paul Rich again, knock on wood. But the name is shit for a lot of reasons, just not because it's sucks.
This is my complaint with it as well, in that, all right, fine, you want to call him the Viking Experience, call him the Viking Experience. It's not the greatest name in the world, but I mean, this is what Vince McMahon does. He likes to hit you over the head with things. But they had built up the name the War Raiders. They're the NXT Tag Team Champions. They'd gotten the war chant over and everything, and now, I mean, they not only changed their full name, their tag team name, they gave them completely different names as singles competitors as well, and it's just everything that they did in NXT now just feels like a waste, because that's not them anymore. They're the Viking Experience. So that's the most upsetting part, is that the whole NXT thing it feels pointless, because now they get called up to the main roster and they're just a completely different team, literally down to every single detail. They are a different team. And I wrote this column a long time ago about the disconnect between NXT and WWE, and how they're real just two separate entities, because Vince McMahon is going to do what he wants, and guys are losing on the way out of NXT, which is fine. You should lose on the way out of your territory and everything, but then they're just different people on the main roster, and it's upsetting just to see that NXT is so great, it does so many things right, and then they just get called up to the main roster and they lose everything that is just special about them. Even something as simple as Aleister Black's entrance. Like they no longer they no longer have like the smoke to hide the board that brings them up, and you hear like the crinks in the board now. Like somebody WD-40 that shit, so we stop hearing just how rusty it is. Ricochet's entrance now has bullets ricocheting off of it because this guy is Ricochet, damn it. Just Nikki Cross is just a shell of what she was and what she could have been. There's no rhyme or reason for these call-ups to happen when they do, and then they just kind of neuter a lot of what makes them special in NXT.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the we're talking about how Vince loves to hit you over the head with shit. Because it's like they come out and like, Michael Cole is they're doing the this is the War Raiders from NXT. They're now the Viking Experience. And he's like, these guys aren't just dressed as Vikings, they are Vikings. They live the Viking lifestyle. And I'm like, are you fucking Jesus Christ? Now, even if that's true, it's like, what? It sounds so fake and forced. I don't fucking get it. But I'm happy for them because, hopefully, when you make the main roster, you obviously get a raise and everything. And they're good dudes, and I'm happy that they're finding success. But, yeah, I think, why would you just waste all the time you spent in NXT branding? It feels really pointless to me.
I'm happy that they're getting a raise. I think Steve Cook tweeted it, is that, the War Raiders name isn't going to sink them. Being a tag team on the main roster is going to sink them.
For the most part, that's usually true, yeah. So, next up, we had Cedric Alexander moving away from 205 Live, and Cedric had a great run on 205 Live, and that opens up a spot for someone else to step up, and now he joins Raw.
Cool. Cedric Alexander's great. He's done pretty much all he could do on 205 Live. There was really nothing left for him to accomplish on that brand. I don't have any hopes that they can do anything with these cruiserweights. I mean, they tried to do a whole cruiserweight division on Raw, and then they were like, never mind, here's your own show at the end of SmackDown that no one's going to watch. Maybe Ali's kind of emergence on SmackDown gives them, hey, maybe we can push these guys. Like, they got good stories. They're good in the ring. They can get over. That's about the only hope, but it feels easier to get over on SmackDown when you have a guy like Daniel Bryan, who was the champion, pushing for you to get over. I don't know. I mean, maybe Seth Rollins will look at Cedric Alexander and be like, hey, I can have good matches with this guy. Let me work with him. I just don't know. I don't have any faith that they can book these cruiserweights on these main shows.
Yeah, I fear that too. But obviously Cedric has. There's like limitless potential with the dude. He's great, and it's just, what are they going to do with him, and how far are they going to go with him? So, another new arrival with Andrade with Zelina Vega, which interesting on a couple fronts because you got Zelina, who's married to Aleister Black, so they're on the same brand now. But Andrade is dating Charlotte, and they got split up. So they're now on separate brands.
They've clearly made an effort to keep the married couples together, which is good. The dating couples, the same effort wasn't quite there, and I kind of get that. Like, it's just dating. You don't know where these things are going to go. And you're not like, they're not under any obligation. I mean, it's the right thing to do to keep married couples together. So they're not, traveling, they're not on different schedules and stuff, but technically they're not under any obligation to do that. So I'm not like, oh, they split up Charlotte and Andrade. Like, they're dating. It's very new as well. They'll still have, like, Alexa Bliss and Buddy Murphy have been, I think, they might even be engaged, and like they're on different brands. So I would imagine maybe once they get married, somebody gets moved there. And I'm not even so certain that Charlotte doesn't get moved to Raw in the coming. I mean, maybe they probably want her on SmackDown when the Fox deal comes because they're that high on her. But Raw's women's division is just dead right now. They could use somebody like Charlotte. So I'm not too concerned that, all right, they split up a dating couple. Like, as long as the married couples stay together, then fine. You know what? If Charlotte and Andrade want to be on the same brand, get married.
Well, apparently it was like a big conspiracy theory last night. That's all I kept reading. They're trying to sabotage and hurt their relationship. And like, yeah, I'm sure that was the first thing they thought of while the rating was down 26% from last year. And yeah, you know what we should do tonight? Let's fuck with Charlotte and Andrade and put them on different shows. That'll fix her.
That was the conspiracy theory when it was Paige and Del Rio. Like, they moved them to separate brands, and because they actually, like, that was actually a toxic relationship, as we kind of knew from the start, and then more details came out and we found out it was an extremely toxic relationship. Like, by all measures, Charlotte and Andrade have a good relationship. It seems like a healthy relationship. Again, I don't think they were that concerned over dating couples as they were of married couples, because, again, Alexa Bliss and Buddy Murphy have been on different brands for like years now, and like they had a chance to move Buddy Murphy to Raw, but they kept them on SmackDown. I'm trying to think who else is dating. Like, they put Rowe with Sarah Logan. They're both on Raw, so that's a good sign. I guess I don't know where Nikki Cross is going, and I'm not even sure where Killian Dane is going either. But I guess technically they're both on SmackDown, so that's a good sign. I'm trying to think of who else is just dating but are on separate brands, and I'm not up to date on WWE relationships, so I apologize for that. I don't know what brand Kathy Kelly's on. She's dating Finn Balor, I believe, and Balor's now on SmackDown. But it's clear that they wanted to keep married couples together. Just dating couples, they didn't seem to be as concerned about, which, who cares?
Yeah, I just found it funny that apparently there was the big conspiracy theory last night, and I was like, listen, this company does a lot of stupid and petty shit, but I'm sure that was not high on their fucking agenda yesterday. It's like, come on now. But yeah,
and if Charlotte was really that upset about it, or then she could have gone there and been like, hey, I think, I should move brands, or he should stay on this brand. Charlotte has that kind of cachet with the company to where they would be like, all right, yeah, we kind of want to move him, but at the end of the day, he's probably just going to get lost in the shuffle anyway. So we may as well keep him on this brand to keep Charlotte happy, because she's our big star and we'd rather her be happy than anything.
Yeah, Andrade is so good. I wish he had something resembling a direction in this company.
It'd be nice. He really is good. Zelina Vega is really good as well. Like, they're a great pairing, and they should. I mean, he beat the Intercontinental Champion on his first night. You would think that would mean something, but now Balor's on SmackDown, so you're probably not even getting a rematch out of that. It's just like, why, why are you teasing that this guy is going to get an Intercontinental title shot, and then you're moving the guy he beats, and so now he might not get anything. I don't have any hope that they can do anything. That this is the theme of this show, is just having no hope that any of these moves matter and they'll actually make something out of these moves.
Yeah, and that's, it's like, I hate to feel that way, but it's, there's so much history with their booking / lack of booking, and it's hard to give them blind faith. Rey Mysterio moved over to Raw. They made sure he was just another dude night one. Had Lars kill him.
I'm fine with that.
Well, yeah, but it's like Ray's whole return has just been so weird.
Ray's return boils down to just having great matches with Andrade. Like, the thing with Ray is we all love him. He can still go in the ring. They try to treat him as, oh, he's the greatest mask of all time, one of the greatest luchadors of all time, and all this stuff. But they've never booked him as such. Like, even, when he won the world title, it was like, oh, it's a whole Eddie thing. Like, he's always been super popular. He's always been super good. He can get over with just about anything and with anyone, but he's never been treated as this guy actually matters. He's just been, here's a really good wrestler. We're going to tell you all of his history and tell you why he's legendary, but we're not actually going to treat him in that matter. And it's been the same thing since he's returned. It's like, oh, we're telling you why this guy is great, but we're not actually showing you, as far as how we book him, why he's great. Like, he's having great matches. Everyone can see that in the ring he can still go. No one can, like, if you just look at him from a booking perspective, you're like, okay, he's a guy. And like, if they want to use him to get Lars Sullivan over, then unfortunately I've given up on them treating Rey Mysterio as anything other than just another guy out there that they're going to trot out and say is legendary. And so if they're going to use them to get Lars over, that's fine by me. You gotta build up some new guys, and they're hot on Lars for the time being. So use Ray to get him over. And Lars is like Ray. I guess Lars is on SmackDown now, so it's once again, it's a moot thing. But like, Lars and Ray would probably be a good feud for Lars. Ray will make him look good by bumping his ass off, and it's easy to look good when you're that big, killing someone that small. But they're not even going to do that.
Yeah, again, it's just like, there's no explanations to why we're doing moves, and again, I think that just hurts the overall thing, the overall theme behind it, because it's really hard to become invested. And so, yeah, Ray's he's kind of a dude, which is a shame, because you're not going to have Ray for that much longer. We're lucky he's had this renaissance and that he's gotten healthy enough to do what he does. And the thing is like, with Ray, is like, Ray has a name, Ray has a fan base, and I think if you book it right, Ray should be an upper mid carder with that you could pull the switch anytime if you need a main event guy. He should be a believable world title challenger at any time, but for whatever reason, I think that it's another example of the company just being petty with people, is the fact that how he left and everything last time, and I think that they're just getting their revenge.
Probably. Like, I wouldn't put it past that this company is petty. It's been proven plenty of times.
That's right. The Usos made the jump to Monday Night Raw, and I think that was a good move, because they've been on SmackDown seemingly forever, and the change of venue will be good. And now you have the Usos, Ricochet and Black, the Viking Experience, the Revival. Your tag team division is looking really good right now on Raw.
Yeah, we talked about how the tag team division is shaping out on Raw, and the addition of the Usos, who, I mean, for my money, they're the best team in WWE right now. They're one of the best teams in all of wrestling right now. Their promo ability has come so far. Like, their matches always deliver. You just ran down the teams, and it's like, wow, a lot of these guys can have so many good matches, and like, they're not going to do anything with Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, but you could even like throw them in there. Just all of these teams can just go out there and you give them 15 minutes and they're just going to have these banger matches and I just don't have any faith that any of that is going to happen. It would be nice if it did, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in it. As far as the Usos go, it's good that they're on Raw. They definitely needed a change from SmackDown. I did feel bad for them in that, you read all these reactions for the Superstar Shakeup, and you see, like Kofi Kingston didn't want the Usos moving because he talked about his friendship with them. Like Xavier Woods was not pleased that the Usos were moving. Like all these guys in SmackDown seem to have a tight bond with the camaraderie in the locker room, with especially with the up down down guys. And then the Usos get moved to Raw. It was a necessary move. I felt bad for the SmackDown guys, who clearly the Usos are well liked in the locker room, and they seem to get along with a lot of people. Like Daniel Bryan has talked about them, the Hardys have talked about them, and now they're on Raw, and so they just got moved away from these guys.
Yeah, and according to I think it was on Observer Radio this morning, apparently Woods was like he's not going to quit or anything, but Woods was like legit pissed that, like he said on SmackDown, that 80% of his up down down crew got drafted to Raw. He was like, just like, what the fuck?
I thought it was great because he tweeted this like during Raw, even his reactions, and he once the Usos got drafted, and he's like, they took the Usos from me. Like they're taking these guys from, and the Miz, like because the Miz is a regular on the show as well. It's like they took the Usos and the Miz. Like they're just taking the whole up down down roster. And then at the end, Styles gets drafted because he's a regular, and Woods is just shaking his head in a video. And I was like, this is amazing. And then they actually let him go out there on SmackDown and vent about, they took 80% of my roster. I'm trying to build a brand. If I don't get Tyler Breeze, I'm going to be pissed. I was like, I'm so happy they let this guy actually vent about this on SmackDown. And then they still didn't give him Tyler Breeze, which, come on, guys. Like, you're not doing shit with Tyler Breeze. Throw that bone to Xavier and the up down down brand.
Yeah, I cracked up when he said that. I was like, that's funny, but it was like, but what the best part about it was that like he was to a point. I mean, he came across, because it sounds so silly, but he came across so serious about it. He's like, what? Like you said, I'm trying to build my brand, and they took all my people, and so he's kind of like left screwed right now. But yeah, that was funny. But and with the Usos moving, they also shifted Naomi to Raw.
Yeah, the Raw side needed some women's wrestlers, and I mean, it got crippled more on SmackDown. But Naomi is another person who it seemed like she'd kind of done everything on SmackDown. I don't know who she was going to feud with, and it was a move that they obviously wanted to move the Usos to Raw because they were the bigger priority, and then they wanted to keep the married couple together. So Naomi gets moved to Raw as well. Now that there's the Raw women's division looks rather thin, like Naomi might be able to stand out a little bit.
Yeah, because yeah, I agree. She needed to move from SmackDown, and it'll be interesting to see who is gonna start picking up some momentum now, because obviously Lacey Evans, who is officially on Raw, is getting a title shot, and then you have somebody like Ruby Riott, who is really talented. Excuse me, but there was no way she was getting any kind of chance when Ronda was around. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. As you said, it's a little thin right now, and we'll see who steps up and who becomes the new favorite. Sanity is dead. Eric Young was drafted to Raw. Killian Dane is staying on SmackDown. As of right now, Nikki Cross has no brand. And Alexander Wolf is either leaving the company, is getting released, or is being shifted to one of the NXT brands.
I don't know what's going on with Alexander Wolf. That tweet he sent was certainly eye-catching, and a lot of people took it as he was leaving the company. I didn't take it as that. I took it as he was just saying goodbye to sanity. And then he used the hashtag WWE because they've been taught to hashtag everything. But the way it was worded and the way it was stylized, it did make it seem like, oh, he's leaving WWE. But I didn't jump the gun on that. And then, yeah, it was reported that, well, maybe he could go to NXT. I mean, maybe he could. Who knows? I thought we would see. I really thought we would see more with kind of NXT, maybe not call-ups, but like NXT UK guys getting moved. And maybe tonight on NXT, like they've already taped the shows, but maybe tonight they're like, oh, by the way, like this superstar is getting drafted to NXT. I don't know if they're going to do that in post or not, but it'd be nice if NXT was more part of the, and even NXT UK was more part of this whole superstar shakeup. Sanity being split is, I mean, who could possibly care? Like, they didn't do anything on the main roster. You forgot about them pretty much the week after they debuted, and it was just a dead act. It was another act where it's like they were really hot in NXT. They had something going. Their gimmick was well established, well defined. Everyone worked well together. And then they got called up to the main roster and they had no clue what to do with these guys.
Yeah, to me, it's just a complete disappointment because they didn't even get a chance. They got brought up. They didn't do shit with them. They hung out in catering all the time and just almost never made TV. I wrote in my Raw report, and I'm dead serious. I think Eric Young's best shot at this point is for somebody to grab a laptop, load up the Global Wrestling Network, and show Vince McMahon all of Eric Young's comedy work. Because Vince loves that shit. And if he likes what Eric does, that dude will stick around till he's like 50 like R-Truth, keeping work, you know? But, I mean, just him on his own and, like, the weird, crazy Eric Young sanity character, I just don't see much happening. He's a dude. He'll be doing jobs like No Way Jose, but at least he's a good wrestler and they won't be bad matches.
That's fine. It's better than whatever they're going to do with him, which is going to be absolutely nothing. Maybe you put him with Authors of Pain on, like, but even they had a rivalry with NXT. Like, it wouldn't actually make much sense. But if you want to stick with kind of this Eric Young cult leader kind of thing, Drake Maverick doesn't make much sense with Authors of Pain, especially as the 205 Live general manager. Eric Young can be a mouthpiece for them. He could even work six-mans with them. It makes as much sense as anything else they're doing. They're not going to do it, but it's an idea for him to just do something and get on television.
I've heard worse ideas, to be honest with you. So, yeah, but Lacey Evans officially on Raw and will be challenging Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title.
Yeah, sure. They're reportedly high on Lacey Evans, even though she nearly killed Natalya with that moonsault on Monday. We talked about it last time. Like, Evans is a fine holdover for what they for Becky Lynch right now as they try to heat other people up because they haven't completely buried Lacey Evans. Her gimmick is what it is. I don't think they've even like talked enough about her background and why she's like this, like that she is kind of like a military lady and that she just, you know, I don't think they've talked enough about her background and her upbringing. It's
God
just
damn
more
it,
of...
Jeremy. She is the sassy Southern belle. That's all you fucking need to know.
I guess so. it'd be nice if they did a little bit more explaining on why she is sort of like this. Instead, it's just she comes out, she doesn't like the nasties, and that's that. So it is like if you listen to her interview with Lillian Garcia, like you can really hear her, like she's very emotional, and her backstory is so good, and it's like, oh wow. And maybe it turns her into too much of a baby face, but I mean she can play it for heel heat. It's like, wow, this person is incredible. And they just don't do any of that. It's just she's out here, she comes out, she leaves, she's the sassy Southern Belle, and that's it.
That's right. EC3 was drafted off of Main Event to Raw and then drafted to death after Braun fucking wrecked him.
I liked your comment. EC3 was drafted to the graveyard. Like, yeah, this poor guy, another guy who he didn't even do too much in NXT. He wasn't there long enough, but he clearly could have gotten over big. And then he's just on Raw and does absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's that poor guy.
He had a bunch of matches on Main Event with Tyler Breeze and Apollo Crews. I'm like the only motherfucker that watches that shit.
You are the only person who watches Main Event. I can confirm that.
So yeah, it's that I feel bad for that motherfucker though. It's like, listen, he is not the greatest in-ring wrestler, but the dude has a great look and he can talk. They've pushed a lot of people with a lot less, like Jinder Mahal. And for some reason, and again, I think this goes to pettiness of the company, Impact and TNA was never competition. But he went there and he became a star there after they failed with him. And now he's back and they're like, yeah, we'll fucking show you, buddy. And they just booked him into the ground. Day one, man.
He was a mute to start with. Like, they took away this guy's best asset by just not having him talk.
Yeah. Total shame. And the main event, AJ Styles jumped from SmackDown. I think the AJ move is a good move because we've mentioned before with other people. Felt like AJ did everything he could on the brand. Did a lot for the show. And, we'll open it up to some different matches and everything. And, I think the AJ move to Raw is smart.
AJ was pretty much done what he needed to do on SmackDown. It felt like he feuded with everybody. He held the title for a long time. He wasn't gonna get back into the title picture. It didn't seem like. So moving to Raw, fresh matches, like just give some bangers with Seth Rollins. Not that they'll feud off of the jump, but there's some good matches for him. AJ's one of those guys who will pretty much be fine with anything that is given because he gets the majority of his stuff over. The crowd still reacts highly to him. He's always going to have a very good match, and they clearly treat this guy as a star. Like, he's been there for 4 years. He's been in a lot of high profile matches. He's been given lengthy WWE title run. Like, they like this guy. They're going to treat him as a star. So on Raw, I mean, now that Roman Reigns is off of Raw, AJ, and it's kind of the AJ and Seth show, it feels like. So just let them tear the house down, not against each other, at least not yet, but like let them tear the house down in separate matches throughout the night.
Yeah, and then apparently, not announced on Raw, but apparently according to Big Dave Meltzer, Samoa Joe will be moving to Raw. He wasn't on Raw because he was sick this week, and they are pushing his announcement back probably to next week. But that'll solve the problem of getting a secondary title back on Raw after Balor was moved to SmackDown. So Joe to Raw, with the rumor being that he will be feuding with Braun Strowman.
The Strowman thing we've talked about, just he's cold. He doesn't need a title, but he definitely needs something. I'm worried Joe is just going to absolutely truck him on the mic. I don't think Strowman is a good promo. His cadence is just the whole monster yelling and just his voice and cadence. It's just not good. Like he's just not that good of a promo. Like Braun is at his best when he says 3 words and then he just kills guys or tosses over things and it just looks like a monster. He's not good when he has to cut. Like the whole Michael Che, Colin Joe stuff was just all of that was cringeworthy. He's just not good when it comes to cutting even semi-lengthy promos. And we know Samoa Joe can just completely eviscerate guys on the mic. So I worry about that with Braun. Joe will get everything over. Braun will, I mean, if he tosses Joe around, like that makes him look good. It feels like a feud that Braun has to win because I don't know. Like if you lose to Samoa Joe, it establishes Samoa Joe even more, but it almost kills Braun, especially the last year he's had. But I don't think Braun like needs the title or anything. It feels like a feud where they've almost booked themselves into a corner with how they're going to end up booking it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Joe will fucking destroy him on the mic. So we will move on to SmackDown, and the roster moves to SmackDown. First up was Intercontinental Champion Finn Balor. Had a tremendously fun match with Ali on SmackDown. And so Finn Balor and the IC title to SmackDown.
If Joe's moving to Raw, then obviously SmackDown needed a secondary title. So Balor being there is fine. He'll have good matches. I mean, he's the champion, so theoretically he should get on television. But even like Joe struggled to get on television. Like Nakamura was never on television. When he was the champion. So he should be on TV. Balor is he's another guy who just hasn't been given a whole lot to work with, but he remains over because he's charismatic and he's a good worker. So we'll see. It's a fine move. Raw was fine, but he wasn't really doing anything. SmackDown, it feels like there's going to be a little bit more opportunity for him there.
I'm just glad he got away from Baron Corbin and Lashley now. I saw way too much of that shit. So yeah, yeah, Balor moving to SmackDown. There's some definitely want to see like him and Buddy Murphy. I'd like to see him and Ali again. But yeah, there's some good stuff for him on that brand. And like you said, Finn is just really good. Fans love him. And yeah, there's no reason that outside of just shit booking, there's no reason he shouldn't succeed on the brand. So hopefully everything works out. But yeah, I like the move. Changes things up a little bit, some fresh opponents. Next up, Ember Moon moved to SmackDown. I was, when that happened, I was slightly disappointed. I was hoping she'd get a shot on Raw because she's like Ruby Riott, the fact that while Ronda was around, she was never going to get any real run. But maybe that opportunity will come on SmackDown now.
Here's my thing with Ember Moon. I don't get Ember Moon. Not to say that she's not a good wrestler, not to say that she doesn't have a good look or anything like that. I just don't understand what her character is. Like, I thought her promo was kind of cringe on Tuesday. The whole, the She-Nom is here. Like, the fuck are you called the She-Nom? Like, I never got it really in NXT either. So this isn't a thing of the main roster has ruined her. I never quite understood what Ember Moon is all about. And maybe that's just a disconnect with me and other people get it, but the whole package is just never connected with me. So I can't say I'm like, oh, I'm really excited for Ember Moon. I think she's a good wrestler. I don't mind her or anything. I just don't have a reason to care about her on that level. So she'll probably do well on SmackDown because, as we talked about, the SmackDown women's roster is is looking really good right now. And Ember Moon, I mean, maybe that means she gets lost in the shuffle, but she can potentially break out of the pack if given a chance. But I'm not someone who is super high on Ember Moon, and I really never have been.
She's the Sheenom, Jeremy. Okay.
Tell me what that means. What is the Sheenom?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They only say it like 10 times when she's out there.
Is she is the like the Finn Balor, the extraordinary man who can do extraordinary things, or what? That's all these nicknames are so stupid. Like, the Sheenom, dumb as shit.
It's like a female phenom, okay? It's
sure.
Again, self-explanatory. Hello. No, I get what you're saying. I've seen a lot of people actually say similar things, and yeah, I mean, there was times where she's like mentioned in promos in the past to like the War Goddess thing, and I think that would probably play better. Yeah, because it comes on like they say it like, oh, it's Ember Moon, the Sheenom, and it's just like, yeah, it feels very cringeworthy. One, but then like you said, it's like, what the fuck is a Sheenom? Nobody's ever told us. You know, it's like, give us something, help us understand, give us a reason to care and invest in her. And so, yeah, you're not the only one, so don't feel bad. It's I've heard it a lot actually. So sticking with the women, Bayley is now officially on SmackDown. Made sure to point out in her promo that she's a solo act now because somebody went home. And we will talk about that later. But Bayley to SmackDown didn't feel like a good start on SmackDown. I thought the promo stuff was rough, and yeah.
Bayley is, I mean, she got booed on SmackDown, which isn't the best of looks. You know, she's a singles competitor now. We'll see where that goes. Bayley is someone who, that's another person who just got completely neutered on the main roster, and it's like, okay, you know, they completely lost the plot with her character once she got called up, and she's never recovered, never gained traction or anything, and now she's frustrated alongside Sasha. So we will see what happens. I still like Bayley. I still think she can manage to be something, but getting booed wasn't the best of look for her. Like, her reactions have clearly just been significantly decreased from the time she was called up to now. Like, it's night and day. She barely gets a reaction nowadays, and it just, I don't know. Bayley is just someone who, if she's given up to the point where it looks like she's given up, I can't even say I blame her, because it's just nothing has connected with the main roster. But I would hope that she can push through it and try to make something of it.
Yeah, the thing with Bayley, I keep hearing a lot of people say, is that there's a defense out there that it's not WWE's fault, and that Bayley failed because Bayley was only good enough to be a small room act. She was dancing Homer going to Capital City and failing. And I don't think that's the case. I'm sorry. I don't think you get that over in NXT and have that number of great matches, and then all of a sudden you're shit. Like, I understand a lot of people are upset at Sasha right now, and people don't like that she went home and that she was upset about losing the titles. And all of a sudden, it's like, the way people talk about her, you would think she's the worst woman on the roster in terms of talent. Because all I'm hearing now is, you know, she was never that good. She only botches. She's never had a great match. And again, I must have been imagining, like, you know, the entire feud with Bayley and other things in NXT I saw. But it's just, it's funny how things turn, and how, as Daniel Bryan would say, how fickle the fan base can be.
But yeah, I think the main roster just the whole presentation, like I said, kind of neutered, just let her down, and it never felt like they tried to give her a chance to get that character really rolling. And that character had a ton of potential in terms of being like that top babyface woman. You know, she should have been what the little girls want to be. She should have been doing tons of make-a-wishes. And just, it's Bailey. Fucking Michael Cole when she comes up. It's Bailey! And, like, that's the character explanation. She's Bailey. And, yeah, again, never given a reason to care. And it's very disappointing. And, yeah, you have to kind of wonder, like, for as much as she's talked over the years about how much she loves wrestling, is she starting to lose that now? Because she's kind of looking, I'm not going to say she's not trying, because she is, but she looks a little defeated, a little dead behind the eyes out there. Especially last night when she got kind of a lack of reaction coming out, and then she got booed during the program.
She definitely looks defeated again. Sasha is throwing like an actual public fit by not showing up and with all these subtweets and all this other stuff. Bailey is reportedly just as frustrated with how things have gone. Bailey is just taking a more professional approach by still showing up for work and trying to work through it, but you can see it in her eyes and see it in her face that it looks like she would rather take the Sasha approach. This is just kind of who Sasha seemingly is and who she's been. Like Sasha has never hid the fact that when she loses, she gets that pouty face going.
Oh, Sasha boo-boo face.
Yeah, she's never been able to hide that very well. And so the fact that she would kind of just go home and take time and be away from everything is more understandable than someone like Bailey, who seems to just, I'm going to show up. I'm going to try to work through it. Like she had a tweet that was very Revival-esque on her tweet of like, you know, I'm here to make a change, to try to better everything, to work, to push through everything. And it's like, okay, like I see you, Bailey. You're trying out there. I don't know how much it's going to mean, but you're trying out there. And you know what? It's better to be there and to try than to go home and pout, because that's probably not going to change as much. Like there's a lot of unhappy people in WWE, it would seem like, and we'll talk about this later, but you're not doing yourself too many favors if you just go home and you're just like, I'm done with it. Like I'm not saying you should just take what they give you and be happy with it, but at the same time, just try to handle it a little bit more like a professional. Like Naomi is a good example of that, and I think Bailey is a good example of that. Becky Lynch was never really happy with her spot, and she just worked and got herself over and stuff. Like you can tweet your frustrations, and even the Revival, like they were frustrated. They reportedly asked for their release, but they never just went home and said, I'm done. Like they kept trying to be there, kept trying to pitch stuff, kept trying to make changes. And I'm not saying it's fully worked out for them, but hey, at least they're getting good matches and they're kind of getting what they want on the live events with these long tag team matches and everything. And now the Raw tag team division is looking good, and if they put some effort into it, like the Revival could be a focal point of that. Just going home and sitting at home doesn't really bring about that change.
Yeah. Speaking of more changes, we got Kairi Sane called up from NXT, which had been rumored and made sense, especially after tonight's episode of NXT. It'll make more sense to a lot of people. And she has been paired with Asuka as a tag team. And I am here all day long and twice on Sunday for that.
I like it. I mean, Kairi Sane's awesome. Asuka's awesome. It feels a little forced. Like why is Paige associating herself with these two other than it can be great? Like she's clearly just being used as a mouthpiece, which is fine. Like Asuka, they reportedly, because she doesn't speak a whole lot of English, that they're not a fan of her cutting like these kind of promos, even though like her broken English is good and it gets over, it gets reactions. And Kyrie can, like, she's got a good gimmick that can get over. Like Paige as a mouthpiece on the main roster can work fine. It still feels a little like, let's put these two women together because this is just what we're gonna do with them, and instead of a more natural kind of thing. But I'm excited for the possibility of this tag team.
Well, first of all, thankfully they didn't call him like the Asian Experience.
Yes.
So we have that going for him. I think it makes a lot of sense because Paige needed something to do. She wants to be involved. She wants to be on the road, and she can talk. So using her as a mouthpiece, like you said, good move. And bringing up Kyrie and pairing her with Asuka is also more than just a main roster team. I think it's also a way to acclimate Kyrie to the main roster lifestyle and style in the ring, because now she can travel with Asuka. She can learn everything she needs to learn, because as an adjustment, because in NXT you don't have to take care of all your travel and all that shit. So moving up and everything and being paired with Asuka, who she knows, that makes a lot of sense. And the sooner they beat the fucking Iconics, the better.
How dare you?
The Iconics are horrible, Jeremy.
The Iconics are the best tag team in women's wrestling history, and I will not hear anyone say otherwise.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Iconics fucking suck.
This conversation is over. You are not iconic.
Well, I'd rather not be if it means I fucking sucked as bad as they do. Jesus. No offense, man, but it's like the thing of like Billy Kay. And I don't know how to put this in a nice way, but I wish I could pinpoint the point where she went from a good wrestler with a lot of potential to looking like a mentally challenged giraffe in the ring. I swear to God, there has to be some kind of compilation out there with her falling all over herself. It's not good. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. They're sweet girls, they're pretty and everything, but they're just not good professional wrestlers at all.
I hope the Iconics hold the titles until WrestleMania 40.
Hope you rot in hell for that. So Lars Sullivan, who was technically drafted to Raw and was on the webpage, showed up on SmackDown, killed R-Truth, and we were informed that he's now drafted to SmackDown, which I figured either he or Braun would move, because I figured they'd want to keep them apart for a while, because that seems like one of those things that, you know how they love to do the big man spot in the Rumble, where like the two big hosses clear out a bunch of bodies, and then they do the big face off, and that kind of feels like something they'd like to build to, and then maybe a match later, but you really can't have them on the same brand right now. So Lars to SmackDown, and fine, makes sense.
I didn't get why people were upset over, they said he was on Raw, now he's on SmackDown. Like, they're clearly confused and they don't know what they're doing. Like, that's probably true. I took it as it's a shakeup. Like, why couldn't this guy, like, he didn't have a brand. Why couldn't he be on Raw and then the next night be moved to SmackDown? Like, again, because they don't have a rhyme or reason to why they do this stuff. But let's say, in theory, it is a lottery type system. Like, why couldn't his name be pulled out for Raw And then, everyone on the Raw roster would be available to be moved to SmackDown because, again, they don't have set rules of saying, hey, you can only be drafted once during the shakeup. Why couldn't his name then been pulled for SmackDown? So, yes, they probably were just, we don't know which brand we're putting this guy on, so we're just going to have him appear on both shows and then go from there. But I think logically you can talk yourself into why he was on Raw and then said to be on Raw and then on SmackDown and now on SmackDown. Now, if he shows up on Raw this coming Monday, then they don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. But I think you can make sense of it if you really want to try to make sense of it. And I understand if at this point you don't want to try to make sense of it. Lars on SmackDown will be fine. They're clearly high on this guy. He's killing all the Attitude Era guys. Lars hates the 90s and the early 2000s, which I can't say I blame him there.
Yeah, I had no problem with him showing up on Raw and then SmackDown because, I mean, Christ, years ago they did the gimmick where John Cena got drafted to SmackDown, then back to Raw on the same night.
Yeah, so I don't think it was that big of a deal.
No, I didn't care. It just, like you said, it felt like they put him on Raw and then they were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have said that he was on Raw because we were going to put him on SmackDown. It was probably just a dumb mistake, and it's like, yeah, I didn't think too much of it. There's bigger fish to fry when you're going to look for inconsistencies and complaints. So yeah, I didn't really care. Buddy Murphy finally, he's finished up with 205 Live, doesn't have to cut weight anymore, and is moving to SmackDown.
We'll see. I liked Buddy Murphy on 205 Live. He really, he made the most of that change. He was a guy who pushed to be on that brand. He said he could, cut the weight, and who knows if he actually weighed 205, but I guess they did the whole weigh-in gimmick. After that, they kind of dropped it. He made the most of that opportunity. He had a nice run with the title. His title run's over, so he doesn't have much to do. It's, again, I just don't know how much they're going to give these cruiserweights on these main shows. But hey, put Buddy Murphy in there with Finn Balor. Put him in there with Ali. I mean, should just give him a match against Xavier, Kofi, any of these guys. Buddy Murphy could go. Yeah, Brian, Buddy Murphy could go. So hopefully they give him some time and let him actually show up and be on television, because that's the toughest part of WWE right now, is just getting these guys on television.
Yeah, I love Buddy Murphy. Dude is awesome. And yeah, he's a great story because he was a dude that, he couldn't find NXT TV with his network subscription, for Christ's sake. That dude was just toiling down there, working the coconut loop, couldn't get on TV, started getting into shape, made the pitch to get the 205 Live, got the chance, made the absolute most of it, and has become a really, really great worker. Just fucking delivering banger after banger last year and into this. And yeah, I wish nothing but the best for him. And like you, cautiously optimistic. Hopefully he gets on TV. But there's a lot of really good matches for him to have, because, like I said, Finn Balor, Daniel Bryan, we visit the feud with Ali. Just there's a lot of stuff. So yeah, Buddy Murphy, all in on that. Good stuff. They closed out the show teasing the biggest acquisition in WWE SmackDown history, which was Vince McMahon fucking with everybody, going insane, and announcing Elias.
I thought it was going to be Jinder Mahal at first.
Oh, God, that's not even funny, man. That's probably But they brought out Elias, and Elias was he was brutally honest with Vince, said he didn't always agree with him, but was moved by Vince's words, calling him the future of the company. And he was all happy and was going to perform, and then the big dog arrived. The real biggest acquisition. He kicked Elias's ass. Superman punched Vince and declared that, while, he didn't say it, but AJ Styles may have built the house, but it's now Roman Jarred. And so Roman makes the big move to SmackDown. And it makes sense. You need to, AJ went to Raw. You need to move another big name back to SmackDown. And we will see
what SmackDown has in store for the big dog in the future.
It's a move that, I mean, with them moving to Fox, they want stars on that show, and Roman Reigns is their biggest star. It's him and Becky, and then everybody else is kind of just fighting for third place. Now Becky's kind of on both shows, and Reigns is on SmackDown, so it's a move with some foresight that they want Roman Reigns on SmackDown for the Fox move. Reigns is always going to be fine because he's Roman Reigns. So I don't have any doubt of what he'll do on SmackDown. It'll be nice to see him on SmackDown, get him away from Raw. He'd done a lot on that brand. There wasn't a whole lot he could do. Like they've done the whole Shield reunion thing to death, to where, all right, what else could you possibly do out of this Shield thing? He'd beaten McIntyre. A Lashley feud, a Corbin feud. Like, these are your top heels on Raw right now. Like, none of those really inspire a whole lot of anything. You go to SmackDown, they don't have too many great top heels. It seems like everybody's a babyface on that show right now, but it'll be something different for Roman Reigns, and that'll be nice. I mean, maybe his first feud is with Elias, and Elias wants stars. He's gonna get Roman, Cena, and The Undertaker. I mean, those are the three biggest stars you could possibly ask for at this point. So he's gonna lose all these matches, but hey, he's getting the matches I feel like he would want. So it'll be nice to see Roman on SmackDown. And yeah, like you said, like AJ abandoned his house, and then the Roman Reigns decided to take over the yard.
Squatters' rights, man. Just taking it over. So after SmackDown, they announced some more additions to the roster. First two were Liv Morgan and Mickie James.
Sure, I guess Mickie James wanted to be the Monday Night MILF, and now she's the Tuesday Night MILF. Liv Morgan, it sucks. The Riot Squad was dead. They were buried. They weren't doing anything. We'll see what Liv Morgan can do on her own. I'm not. The SmackDown women's roster is really stacked, and it'll be nice to have a veteran like Mickie there who can, work a solid match, teach these girls the ropes, and then Liv. We'll see. I don't have high hopes for either of them. They probably won't get on TV on most weeks.
Yeah, unless they book those Road Dogg Special 8 woman tags all the time. He used to love doing that all the time. Chad Gable going to SmackDown.
Oh, they did split Chad Gable and Bobby Roode. I didn't even notice that in the draft. Sure, I love Chad Gable. It sucks that this guy just can't do anything, but he's another guy, like, throw him out there with Ali and Buddy Murphy for 10 minutes and just let them go, and it'll be great.
Agreed. Apollo Crews.
A guy who should be better, and they seem to want to push him sometimes, and then he's off television for months, and it's like, all right, what are you doing with this guy? Another guy, throw him out there with these guys for 10 minutes, let him go to work, and it'll get over.
Yeah, Apollo is honestly, I mean, I like the guy a lot, but in WWE, he's just a dude. But at least he's a guy that if you're going to put him out there for whatever it is, 3, 5, 10 minutes, he's not going to have a bad match. So you have that going for him. And finally, they moved the tag team. I was kind of surprised it wasn't the Revival. It was Heavy Machinery.
That team is dead. They'll do some comedy spots. They were dead on arrival, and they're still dead. And now they're on the non-good tag team brand, it would seem. I don't know what tag teams are left. I mean, as the bar split, like Sheamus wasn't there. So it feels like the bar has split now, and I don't know. The SmackDown tag team division isn't looking all that great at the moment.
Yeah, I have no clue about the bar. It might have just been a week off thing for Sheamus, and I don't know, but yeah, we'll see what happens. And So that is the SmackDown portion of the Superstar Shakeup. Earlier we talked about, and Jeremy had flat out said that, there's been reports, there's been rumors, and obviously it seems there's a lot of people looking to leave WWE, disenfranchised with the company for one reason or another. And so we start with Sasha Banks. And according to Dave Meltzer, she has been given time to go home and quote unquote consider her options. Apparently she wants out, but they're hoping she will change her mind.
Again, we talked about it. I don't think going home and, trying to pout through those means is the best way to handle things. But it is, that's how she's going to handle things. I don't know when her contract is up. I don't think it's been reported when her contract is up. So they're not going to release her because, especially if she has like a year left on her contract or even more than that, like they would just rather, you're just going to sit out this fucking year, Sasha. And then, then what are you going to do? You want to talk about change and all this stuff? We'll just have you sit for a whole year and, be happy with that. So if her contract isn't up soon, then the decision seems pretty easy to me because they're not releasing her. It's as simple as that. She's not someone who they're going to be like, all right, see you later. We don't have a use for you. Like, they clearly like her. She's still a featured player every single week. What she's been given isn't good for most weeks, but she's still on television every week, which is more than you can say about a lot of these people. So she's not going anywhere, and unless her contract expires soon and she's willing to just, hey, if it expires in 2 months, I will sit at home for 2 months and then I'll be gone. But I feel like if it expired sooner rather than later, she would be more open about just her request and her frustrations. Kind of like the Revival. Like the Revival were very subtweetish and hinted at a lot of things, but their contracts apparently aren't up until like April 2020. So like, how much are they really going to accomplish if they say, we want our releases and they're not giving it to us? Like, they don't have to. Your contracts are this long. They have some type of plans for you to where they're featuring you to some extent. You're just they're gonna make you sit out, and like that's their prerogative to do because you're under contract to them. So Sasha, she'll be back at some point. I don't know if she'll be happy, but she'll be back. The reports now are saying they're hopeful she'll be back by Money in the Bank. I suspect she will end up back by Money in the Bank.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which Sasha Banks returns. Are we going to get someone motivated, or are we just going to get boo-boo Sasha the rest of her run? I don't know. It's yeah, I don't think they're releasing her. I just can't see it. They've okay. It's a different thing with like Sasha Banks and a Ty Dillinger. All respect to Ty. Seems like a really nice guy, but he was a very low card performer. Was barely ever on TV. Decided he wasn't happy. Asked for his release and got it. And that's good for him because he made a decision and he wanted out. But the thing is like Sasha, whether you love her or hate her, is treated as a top star. The way they present her, book her, treat her. And yeah, I don't see them letting her go because, especially now, because they are throwing more money to keep people because they don't want people going to AEW, and they are just in this mode where they're hoarding talent. They are, fucking Pokemon with Paul, man. Got to collect them all. Got to get all the indie stars while I can. And yeah, I'd be shocked if they let her go. But I just don't know what we're gonna get when she comes back, and that's what I'm gonna be fascinated to see.
she'll continue to, be a featured player. It's just, again, you're not making any change by sitting at home. You've got to show up. You've got to try to do something, like help your own case in these situations. And they like her. They clearly like her. They clearly see her as some type of a star. It's just you can't be a star if you're on vacation with Kalisto. So she'll be given something good. Like if she comes back from Money in the Bank shit, she might end up winning the Money in the Bank, and then I mean Becky can't hold two belts forever, so Sasha can take one of those belts. Like I could see them doing that. And, will she be happy for that? Maybe if she loses it on Raw the next night, which seems to be the case with Sasha, is that she never defends the title. But they don't have a ton of women's stars right now. They have a ton of women's talent. They just haven't heated many of them up. And it's not like Sasha's hot, but she remains over because she does really good work with her character and in the ring, and she has a big fan support behind her. So things will smooth over. Sasha is clearly a person who can't hide her emotions well, and she got seemingly over emotional here, and now she'll take time off. She'll realize that, again, if her contract isn't up soon, she'll realize that her two options are sit at home and continue to complain on social media, or come back, try to make the best out of things, keep getting your name out there, keep pushing for some type of change, and going from there.
Sunday night, they're going to be airing a part of a house show, The Shield's Last Stand. The last match, apparently on Dean Ambrose's contract. Dean, by all accounts, is leaving. And again, whether you love Dean or not, through most of his run, he was a top guy. Maybe not when he was losing to Bray Wyatt's ghost and getting hit with the TV. But other than that, pretty much top guy, WWE champion, run with the Shield. And he just made the decision he's not resigning and staying. What do you think of that?
It sucks because I've always liked Ambrose. I think that they could have done more with him. And don't get me wrong, they did a lot with him. Like they gave him WWE title runs. He was part of the Shield, which they've been pushing since really their first night on the show. He's always been in a featured position. So it's hard to say like, oh, they completely wasted this guy. I don't think he was completely wasted. I do think that they still left something on the table with him. You look back at the Brock Lesnar thing, who knows what happened there? It was clearly not a good situation for both of those two men, and it didn't make Ambrose came out the worst out of that. Everything they did with him after Reigns announced he had leukemia was just god awful stuff. And it didn't have to be. Like the turn, as much as people didn't like it, like Rollins and Ambrose have explicitly said, like, we didn't want to do it. It didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. The fans didn't want to see it. They could have made something out of that, though. Like, it was a shocking thing. It did get people talking. Instead, he was getting, tetanus shots a week or two later. And it's like, all right, well, this is stupid. So I understand Ambrose's frustrations. He's always said he's not in it for the money. He is in it because he just wants creative license, creative joy, and he just wasn't getting that. So I understand why he would maybe want to move on. I believe it to an extent, but the way they've kind of treated it, it's like, all right, is this thing going to last forever? Like, is he going to show up in AEW? Is he just going to kind of go on a little bit of an indie run, and then he'll be like, all right, I miss hanging out with Rollins and Reigns and my wife and all this stuff. So I just want to go back to WWE in 6 months, a year, however long. I mean, you know how it is with WWE. Like, you leave the company, if they the more they think they can't have you, the more they want you. And when you do return, you're treated as a bigger deal. And Ambrose might be smart enough to kind of know that, as I can do my thing for a little while. Then I can say, all right, I'm ready to come back, but I want this. They're going to see just how over I get on the independent scene and stuff. Ambrose doesn't seem like a guy who's just he's not going to do a podcast. That's for sure. He's going to go out there, he's going to bust his ass, and he's going to continue to make a name for himself. And then, the WWE will see that. They'll want him more, kind of like Drew McIntyre, but in a shortened version. I don't think he's going to be on the independent scene for 3-4 years, however long McIntyre was out of the company for. Ambrose might be out for 6 months to a year, but I do think he ultimately leaves for a little bit.
I'll be really interested to see what he does, because I think it's like with him, it's going to be one of two extremes. He's either just going to fuck off and go home and drink whiskey all day and bang Renee when she comes home, or he's going to go out and, like you said, you know what? I still want to do this shit, and he's going to bust his ass and, do a death match or two and just get his Jones on doing that. So it'll be really interesting, because I think it's going to be one extreme or another. And you know what? If he's made the money and he wants to sit home and drink all day and hang out with Renee, more power to him. If he wants to keep working, it'll be interesting to see where he shows up. Because the thing is AEW is not going to bring him in for 6 months. I'd like to think they would be smarter than that, because, they know the game, and Jericho knows about going and coming and everything. So it'll be interesting to see where he works and exactly who he works with, and basically what he charges. Is he going to do the Ryback thing where he charges way too much so that he can say, well, nobody wants to book me? Or is he going to do the Drew McIntyre Cody thing where, I'm going to work a triple shot this weekend and cut these 3 companies a deal since they're all booking me, and give them a reasonable rate and just work a lot. So yeah, the Dean thing fascinates me, because he's such a weird dude that you don't know what he's thinking and what he's going to plan. And I'm actually very fascinated by what he does in the future.
I don't think he's going to be a guy who is going to price himself out of the indies, because again, money doesn't seem to be a concern for him. If he wanted money, he turned down reportedly a huge offer from WWE. So if it was about money, he could have just taken the money and gone from there. Dean, from everything I've heard about him, from everything I've heard him say, from everything I've read about him, he's a guy who just wants to be creatively fulfilled, and he's not getting that in WWE right now. You go on the independent scene, you get to do your death matches, you get to work with guys who you didn't think you'd get to work with previously. You show up at a GCW show or something, because they always do some crazy shit. Maybe you show up in AEW. I don't know. If you show up in AEW, unless, one would think they would sign you to a sort of a lengthy deal, but again, who knows how all that stuff is going to shake out. But you get your name out there more if you could show up to AEW. I think Ambrose just wants to kind of do his own thing and just be creatively fulfilled. And so he'll end up working these independent dates. He's going to get paid well regardless. And he's a guy who's made a lot of money in WWE. And he's a guy who lives a very simple lifestyle. From everything you hear, he's not out throwing, millions of dollars around, thousands of dollars around, spending unnecessary. He lives a very simple, wholesome life where, the guy just wears jeans and a t-shirt all day. You're not seeing a dressed up Dean Ambrose out on the streets too often. So I think he will I don't think it's about money for him. I don't think he'll price himself out and again just sit at home. And I mean, maybe for the first couple of weeks he will, because hey, who couldn't use a vacation and just wants to drink beer and whiskey and hang out with Renee Young all day? But I don't think he's going to be like doing a podcast or anything like that. I think he will be on the independent scene, busting his ass, working hard, and then again, I think 6 months to a year, he'll end up back in WWE, because I don't know how many friends he has, but we know he's really good friends with Rollins and Reigns, and Reigns is going to keep being in the top position. Rollins is going to be in the top position. They're probably going to talk to Ambrose a lot. I'm sure they can say, like, listen, things have changed to this way, that way, and come back. We'll make sure everything is good. And Ambrose will be like, especially if Renee is still there, Ambrose will be like, yeah, I miss my friends. We can make this happen. I did my thing on the independent scene. Now I just want to hang out with my friends again. And they'll treat him as a bigger star if he comes back in 6 months to a year.
I mean, that is what they do. So yeah, now that you mentioned GCW, I think I want to see Dean versus Janela now.
Yeah. Jon Moxley against Joey Janela. Let's go.
Let's get crazy, baby. That's all we need. So we'll close up with Luke Harper. Luke Harper publicly requested his WWE release via the Twitter machine. And I really like Luke Harper, and I think that he's a dude. I mean, he's had injury problems here and there, but I also think he's a guy that they really could have done a lot more with and just never really committed to him to do so.
Yeah, Luke Harper, he's an older guy now, and he had a lot to offer. He probably still does have a lot to offer, but Luke Harper is what, like 39 or something? And maybe that's not like super old in wrestling terms, but it kind of is, especially when you're a guy who just hasn't been treated as a top guy for pretty much your entire career. They're not going to look at a 39-year-old and be like, hey, this is a guy we need to get behind now. Luke Harper is one of those guys who, much like a Ty Dillinger, and you can just tell, and even like a Hideo Itami, like, he wasn't being used the way he thought he should be used. He can get his release. Like, he's a guy they won't have an issue releasing because they just weren't doing anything with him. He's been cleared since February, and they haven't done anything with him. Like, he hasn't been on television since August when Rowan got hurt, and then he had the Worlds Collide match, but that's legitimately the only real television appearance he's had. Luke Harper is a case of, this company has so much talent and not enough, and they already have enough television time and still not enough television time to compensate all of this talent. Like, they have 5 hours of live programming on Monday and Tuesday. They have NXT, they have NXT UK. They can literally do what they want on the WWE network. And I realize it costs money to televise shows and fly in production crews and set up a television product. I'm not saying like they can just run television every single day of the week if they wanted to. Like, no, that all costs money. But they have a lot of programming, and they still don't have enough programming to get a guy like Luke Harper, get a guy like Ty Dillinger, Chad Gable, Apollo Crews, all these talented guys that they have on this roster. They don't have spots for them. And I mean, they're running into a similar issue in NXT. Like, when EC3 was there, he couldn't get on NXT weekly because they just have so much talent. There's just so much talent across the board in this company that I understand why guys are just frustrated and they want more than to sit at home and to collect a paycheck. So Harper, his contract is reportedly up at the end of the year, sometime between October and December. They'll probably release him before that because he's a guy they weren't using. So if they weren't using him, it's not a Sasha Banks situation where they clearly like her, they want to keep her on television, her contract may not be up for a while. Harper is very much a Ty Dillinger case. They're not using him. They have no reason to actually keep him around other than to be petty and to hoard more talent. So you release him. It looks as a sign of good faith, and then maybe Harper returns down the line. Who knows? AEW seems like the landing spot for him because of his relationship with the great Mookie. But we'll see. Like, AEW has to be very careful of taking just WWE cast off after WWE cast off, because especially these older guys, like Luke Harper is 39, Ty Dillinger is like 36, and these guys they talk about wanting to present something new, something fresh, something different. Like, as much as I like Luke Harper and Ty Dillinger, these are not future guys you're going to be building your whole company around, and it can come off as very TNA of, hey, look at these former WWE stars that are now in AEW. But it does still seems like a logical landing spot for Luke Harper. So we'll see.
First of all, as long as he doesn't come out and start a promo with, back when I was up in New York, I'll be okay. But yeah, no, fair points all. But I'm going to say that at this point, I am all for people who are frustrated, who are willing to ask for their release, and who are willing to bet on themselves. Because like we talked about, WWE is hoarding talent. There are people that are very talented not getting anywhere near TV. And we're at a stage right now that you can make money and not be in WWE to do it. You don't have to make WWE to make good money right now. And it's a rarity. It's been a long time. But over the past couple of years, the indie scene has grown a lot. You have AEW now. You just have more people running, more people paying. And if you want to put the work in and you want to do, if you have the effort and everything, I mean, again, I'm all for someone that just looks at their lot in life and goes, you know what, this fucking job sucks right now. And I'm not happy. And, a guy like Luke Harper and someone like Sasha, these are people that dream to getting to WWE someday. And if you're willing to say, you know what, I made it, I lived my dream, but the dream is a nightmare now, and I just want to move on, I am all with you. I think that I love when someone bets on themselves. I love when that happens. I think it's great. And I think it's a time right now to where, for the first time in a long time, it's almost safe to take that chance. Yeah, WWE is the billion-dollar company. It's the guaranteed money. But again, if you're fucking miserable and you're not feeling fulfilled in any way, is it really worth it? So yeah, I'm all for anybody that is willing to break away and just try to be happy doing what they love.
Yeah, Luke Harper is. We will see. Again, I think he is a guy who can be successful on the independent scene. He'll get his release. He'll have his 90 days, and then he'll go from there. He wasn't being used on WWE. If he wants out, he wants out. Again, this is just a case of WWE is taking a bunch of talent. They're hoarding a bunch of talent, and they just don't have spots for them all. They could. I mean, could they create these spots? Sure. Like, you can book your television better and not have, super unnecessary segments, and you can legitimately create more spots for these guys. Would that mean they are still happy? Probably not. Like, Sasha Banks is someone who gets on television every single week, but she's not happy over her creative direction. So it's a giant balancing act. If Luke Harper is on television look where Luke Harper was last year at this time. He was a world tag team champion at this time. He just won the belts at WrestleMania. No one would have guessed that Luke Harper would have been upset and ready to leave the company at this time. Like, this is just how quickly things can change. A year later, he hasn't been used on television for 8 months, and now he wants out. So it's a tough situation. People like to criticize WWE and be like, oh, they're misusing this person, they're not doing right by this person, blah 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 blah. Like, it's an issue that they have hoarded all this talent. It's also just an issue of booking wrestling is fucking difficult sometimes. Managing all these guys, managing all these egos, managing all the creative direction and everything, like dealing with injuries. It's not an easy task. And WWE doesn't always put themselves in the best position to do all of this, especially in 2019. I feel like it's harder than ever because there is so much talent out there, and they're like, with the advent of social media, talent can easily express their frustration more than they could in like the 90s and the early 2000s and everything. And it's a tough situation. Luke Harper's got to do what's best for him, and what's best for him is leaving and getting his release, and then probably doing well on the independent scene, and we'll see where he goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow the stories as they unfold and to see, there's reportedly, I don't know if I want to say a lot, but there's reportedly a lot of, a good number of talents frustrated right now. And a lot of them may be looking for a way out. And it's very interesting timing, not only because you have like AEW looking to become a player, but it's also at a time where WWE is about to be more financially successful than it's ever been. And do you want to give up that guaranteed spot and money? I mean, you may not be fully fulfilled, but do you want to bet on yourself? Do you want to take a chance on a company that hasn't even run their first show as we record this? And do you want to take that chance if you're, Luke Harper? He's 39, his wife and kids, and apparently, I mean, he must be really unhappy if he's willing to give up that pay, that guaranteed pay that he knows is going to be there. So again, it'll be really interesting to follow the stories as they go forward. Who leaves? Who's pissed? Who is just going to take their ball and go home? Whatever you want to call it. But we will keep up and follow on that. And Jeremy, I want to thank you for your time as always.
Thank you for having me as always.
Yeah. Jeremy will definitely be back next week. We're to preview a big loaded weekend of shows. And but until then, remember you can follow the 411 on Wrestling podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and of course on 411mania.com. I'm your host, Larry Csonka. Happy wrestling, and thank you for listening.